You've seen his name on countless buildings in Omaha. But unlike Omaha's most famous billionaire,
We've done better than virtually any country in the world.
there are no biographies and few television appearances featuring retired construction executive and billionaire Walter Scott Jr. Though he spent decades in a leadership role both in his career and in his charitable ventures, he doesn't seek the spotlight that sometimes comes with such things.
I'm not in that position. I don't have any real interest in it.
I think it's really difficult to get Walter to talk about himself because he's not the type of person to look back.
Mike Faust was just barely out of his 20s when he began working for Scott.
Working for Walter was just a great education, and it was a lot of fun.
For every building bearing his name, the Omaha native has been involved in countless philanthropic efforts statewide and beyond that are probably less well known.
Walter has left his mark on Omaha in a way that very few people ever will on a community. And the zoo wouldn't be what it is. The university wouldn't be what it is.
So now you're going to come from labs over here in the other buildings over to here?
Yep. So Michael's coming.
Internationally renowned cancer and bone marrow transplant specialist Dr. Jim Armitage has known Scott for years.
Omaha works together in ways very few communities do. And there's no question that that would not be true in the same way if it wasn't for Walter Scott. He's been the leader of this community for at least a couple of decades.
For Scott, the motivation is simple.
If you're interested in your community, you tend to try or you like to make improvements in it.
According to friends and associates, perhaps Walter Scott Jr.'s biggest impact is his role behind the scenes.
There's no shortage of money. The shortage is really good leadership. And Walter has been one of the ones that really stepped forward with both, the classic, your time, your talents, and your treasure.
Scott picked up some of this from one of his mentors, another well-known Nebraska leader.
I think Peter Kiewit was a person that was very generous and contributed a lot to the community, and I think as much as anything else I learned from him.
Scott began his career at Kiewit in 1953. He quickly rose through the ranks as an engineer and a manager of major Kiewit projects across the country, moving his family 17 times. 26 years later, he took over as president, turning the Omaha-based firm into one of the nation's largest construction companies, climbing the Fortune 500 and competing for major contracts internationally.
And the second time she built a nest out on that far island there.
So who is the real Walter Scott?
With Walter, what you see is what you get. I call him Brown Shoe Walter. He's humble, he's not full of himself. He doesn't have a big ego.
And then she goes back to swimming.
Like the image that some people would have of, these captains of industry. And he's got a good heart. That's the real Walter.
He's still the same guy. He's a few words, get things done, but always a quiet person, really.
He's a man of relatively few words, but all of his words count. He knows how to motivate people and inspire people.
At 85, he is enjoying life, especially his 2 dogs and his growing family of swans.
We'll see how much they like the lettuce.
And while he could simply write the checks, he still serves on a number of corporate and nonprofit boards, responsibility he takes very seriously.
I don't think you're being a responsible person if you don't, if you just said, go do it, and then forget about it, how do you know whether it was done right?
This is much more than just writing a check. This is about having a vision.
Something's important as far as building.
And Scott still knows his way around a construction site. He's touring one of the latest projects funded in part by his foundation, named for Scott and his late wife, Suzanne. It's a 10-story research tower with 98 labs, part of the new Buffett Cancer Center. and it puts all of the cancer researchers in one place.
We'll just go over to the other lab.
The tower will feature the nation's largest healing arts sanctuary, featuring the work of glass artist Dale Chihuly. Scott is a big fan of Chihuly's work and has a custom piece in the ceiling of his home. For some of the doctors who will work here, this is more than just a new building.
It is shrinking that time that we need to reach the next major milestone. So rather than achieving it in a decade, if we can achieve it in 5 years, 5 years of saving lives, it can't be measured in real dollars.
They go up almost to that next ring.
Pretty close.
The University of Nebraska Medical Center has been a longtime target of Scott's efforts because it fits within the pillars by which he lives his own life.
When my children were growing up, I told them the most important 3 things that they ought to remember. One is that the greatest asset that they had was their good health. Don't do anything to ruin your asset. The greatest thing you could acquire in life was a good education. And the best thing you could do is be a giver and not a taker.
One of his gifts to Omaha is the Avenue Scholars, a program that pairs young people with advisors to help them make the jump from high school to college. And at the college level, he funds scholarships as well.
It's fun to have the opportunity to see what these young people do with their lives. As I say, I've been in the business long enough now that I'm periodically getting notes or letters from people saying, oh, we appreciate the help you gave us, and this is what we're doing now. They're really doing important things as far as our society is concerned.
Hey, sweetheart.
So I see the giraffe have cleaned off all the lower leaves now, finally. There's nothing left for them to pick at.
There's the other Klipspringer right.
Oh yeah, I see it. They're a really interesting small animal.
Scott's been involved with the zoo for 50 years with no end in sight.
If you think about the zoo, it's entertainment, it's family entertainment, it's education, it's conservation, it's research. It covers practically everything you can think of in terms of things that are good for our society.
Whether it's basking in the glow of the new African grasslands exhibit he helped fund, or managing the slate of projects planned for the future, Scott hasn't slowed down much.
Hi guys, good morning.
I don't think there's a meeting where, despite how well I've prepared, he doesn't look at what I've got in front of him and ask a really relevant question.
My interest was in how you build it and how you're doing and what your problems are and whatever. Now, I tend to be an owner, so my question is, when are you going to get done?
By all accounts, Scott is a tough project manager, wanting things finished on budget and on time. But the key is that the projects actually get done.
First and foremost, he's an engineer. So when you have a problem or a project or something, Walter analyzes it, looks at possibilities and parameters and pitfalls, and then you come to a decision and make a decision. Walter started out his career in the mud making things happen, and Walter likes to make things happen.
There's still plenty of unfinished business for Scott, whether he's sharing his time,
Nice to see you.
his money, or his most important life lessons.
Be a giver and not a taker. And giver doesn't mean that you give money or something. You give your time, give it your, share, make good things happen. If you get browsing material wherever you live, I think if you're not doing something to try and make it a better place to live, I think you're missing part of your purpose in life.